long time ago, it was just me talking to you and you didn't really show me eye contact a lot and you were always just moving around, like shifting your eyes. And I told you, I was like, eye contact is important in a conversation, and you highly disagreed to that. You're like, eye contact is not important. So suck it, because this is exactly what it's about. You need to show eye contact.
Hello, I'm Sam.
I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to S3E23 podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, this week on, I think it's a mixture of mindset, right? Mindset around body language, how we understand body language, and do we actually understand others in their way of portraying their body language?
Today's episode is going to be quite an interesting one. I have my own views of body language, and so do you.
Yeah, well, since you already have your views, when I say body language, what do you think it is?
To me, body language is just how one person can read someone's or interpret someone's feelings and how their emotions are just purely off their physical expression.
I wouldn't say body language is how we interpret it, because I think body language is still a form of communication. It's both ways. How you portray yourself with your own body language and how you read other people in their body language. And that could be physically, like how they're standing, their posture, but also how they're talking, how they're carrying themselves, their eye contact, like all of that is all part of body language to me.
Oh, in the book of encyclopedia here, eh?
Yeah, I know.
Relax, buddy.
Go to page 324, paragraph 2 and sentence 1. But this is also something that Julie, if you remember her episode a few ones back, and she is a speech pathologist and she really talks about body language, especially for those with disabilities like autism, and how that's also really important. So this also gave us the inspiration for this episode.
Yeah, she does emphasize on how the importance are in regards to that and really how we can actually express ourselves through that.
Well, understanding people's different types of body language too. Like I understand that there's universal ones where you can read about what they're doing and how that works across a lot of people, but also just understanding individuals and how they are and how their body language differs as well. A quick interruption. We want to thank all of you who have been supporting us. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube.
If you found any of our episodes helpful, please share to your friends and family as it would help us grow.
Now back to the episode. So from actual research, body language actually includes physical behavior, expressions, mannerism, tone of voice, and also your posture as well. So similar to what I said.
Body language does speak louder than words is what she quoted, I remember.
And actually, they put it into percentage. This is from actual research. So nonverbal cues actually made up, like when we're talking about communications, nonverbal cues make up 55% of communication, tone of voice is 38%, and the spoken communication is actually only 7% of it. So it kind of shows how big of an impact body language is.
Yeah, 55%, that's a pretty fucking massive difference compared to the others.
To you, when you're talking to someone, do you think that you read into people's body language a lot, or are you more like you listen to what people are saying and that tells you about who they are and what they do?
I'm a combination of the both. I like to listen and obviously observe, but yeah, the ones that are very strong in terms of the way they express themselves through their body, you can tell a lot about that person and how they're feeling at that moment.
So do you say you would read a lot into people's body language, or do you not really?
I would say I would, yeah, for sure.
I think I do as well. I think from a very young age, I've learned to really read into a lot of people's characteristics, how they move, their mannerism, because sometimes people could say one thing, but they don't actually mean that, especially maybe people who are quieter. You can really see that. If you ask them if you're okay with this or can I do this, are you okay if I buy this? They might say yes, but really internally they might oppose to it, they might be uncomfortable, and that really shows through body language where words can't explain it.
Yeah, as an example, like even when you go into like a networking event and you see a whole bunch of people and you can tell the difference between each person's, I guess, stance and posture and how they're holding themselves.
Presence, the
Yeah.
aura.
Yeah, the presence and aura. So it really does tell quite a lot.
Yeah, and especially we always go back to career, work, and networking and all that. But when you're in like a more senior role or in the workplace for quite a while, the ones that I really pick up on for me is I like to observe people, especially the quieter ones, because the people who are very confident, who aren't afraid to speak their minds, you are what you see is what you get. But the people that you really learn more body language in is the quieter people, or the people who are less likely to speak up. And that's where you learn a lot of body cues because they don't speak up. So there's less of that verbal cue of like what's happening, what are they thinking. So reading into that really helped me learn a lot as well about people.
Yeah, most definitely. The biggest thing there is that might be people who are more on that listening, tamed type of character, but they might have quite a lot to speak about, and it could just be like a confidence thing. They might not be as confident to actually speak their words, and they don't want to. So sometimes you being the leader,
Observer.
yeah, the observer or the leader of the group, you have to sort of pick on those things to bring them out.
That aside, how accurate do you think you are in terms of reading people's body language?
I think I'm pretty accurate.
What makes you say that?
Well, actually, two parts. I think networking has definitely taught me a lot about people and judging characters and bonding with the right people. Secondly, I believe being in that leadership role forces you to learn. And I think you've got to be engaged with your colleagues and your staff members. And I think for you to be a successful and a very good leader, you need to understand that. It's the number one thing.
I think for me as well, I don't know, I can't really pinpoint like an exact moment or like what gave me this experience, but I say I'm also pretty accurate in reading people's body language because as young as I could even remember, I think that's just what I've always done is observe a lot, observe people around me and observe picking up data and adding it to my memory bank to be like, when people do this, what does this mean? When people act like this, but then this influence their actions, what does that mean? And then when they look like this certain way when they're sitting by themselves, like how they're feeling. And it's just like, I also really enjoy people watching. I think people watching is also a good way just to see how people act when they're just doing their day-to-day stuff, like no other external influences. They're just who they are as they're going about their day. And it's a really good way to learn up on different types of body languages.
Yeah, so you're one of those Starbucks creepers. You sit there drinking your grande macchiato or
My
something.
venti, excuse me.
And you have to your venti.
Venti. Yeah, I just find it really interesting. And also when in uni, I studied a marketing course and I had a consumer behavior. That's sort of a little bit different, but just knowing human behavior, consumer behavior, why people do the things that they do really interests me. So I think even at a very young age that may have influenced my interest in that. I just really like it. And to me, actions speak louder than words. And that's always what I've seen. And this goes in many ways and it sings true to me.
I think it's interesting too because humans are just strange people. And we do things and react to things in really particular and strange ways. So yeah, to try and observe people, I think you find and meet some interesting characters.
Yeah, so we actually did a test. I don't know how accurate this test is, but
yeah, my test was terrible. I didn't understand ESL for life, guys.
Nah, you're not ESL. I'm more ESL than you. But I got 81% and you got 71%.
Yeah.
Still pretty good, pretty high percentages, but it just shows because there was a test that shows all the different types of facial expressions, like posture, mannerism, and it asks you questions and it's a multiple choice and you choose what you think this person's feeling.
Yeah, big words that I just could not comprehend. So I was like, okay.
Well, I thought that was a fun one to take.
Yeah.
So in your eyes, why do you think body language shows so much?
Why does it show so much?
Yeah, about someone's thoughts or opinions.
I think body language can tell you how that person is feeling at times because their expression in terms of what their body position is, you can really determine how they're feeling, what mood they're in, how they're feeling at that point or that particular time. So you might be able to approach them at a certain point, or you may have to go, whoa, shit, okay, I might leave that, put that on the back burner and wait for this guy to relax.
Like read the room.
Yeah, you got to read the room. So that's one way. To me, depending on how your body language is, and this is something that you taught me or you showed to me, was about the leg positioning. The feeding pointing at you when you're having that conversation is showing that you're engaged or showing that they're engaged in your conversation. I think that's really important.
Yeah. But I also asked this because I remember there's one conversation a long, long, long time ago, and it was just me talking to you, and you didn't really show me eye contact a lot, and you were always just moving around, like shifting your eyes. And I told you, I was like, eye contact is important in a conversation, and if you're not looking at me, it just means you're not interested, and you highly disagreed to that. You're like, eye contact is not important. So suck it, because this is exactly what it's about. You need to show eye contact.
Well, I say that because eye contact, and I don't know about you guys, but when I'm out there and I'm doing networking and you're using a lot of energy trying to get to know someone,
Your focus,
and you
your
focus your eyes and you're like fucking eye beaming this guy or girl, whoever you're talking to, and it gets to a point where your eyes get dry and you're trying to, keep this eye contact, but your eyes are like, fuck, man. I'm like,
I don't
blinking
mean you need to
and
stare for like 10
but
hours.
that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it's really hard to like keep and maintain eye contact. So you got to like fucking fidget, move your eyes a little bit. Yeah, you might look like you're on, some fucking loose drugs or something, but you've got to try and maintain that eye contact.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
My eyes get hella dry, all right? So I have to like blink and move.
You have no excuse, because I actually have a condition of dry eyes, which I'm going to see a specialist about. So I think I have the dry eyes here. No excuses. But anyways, why does body language mean so much? I think especially, again, in those people who maybe aren't ready to speak up, so they can't verbalize what they're thinking, or again, reading the room. And if you're entering a space and you're not sure what this space is about, what the vibe is, like reading the room, looking at body languages is your first indicator on how you should approach something. And this links back into something else we've talked about in the past, is communication style. So once you've read the body language, if it's a group, how should you approach this? With which communication style should you approach this group with? Or if you're talking to someone, whether it's like meeting up with a friend or if you're actually talking to a colleague, these body languages give you a cue on what communication style you should start with, rather than going into a conversation and thinking, I'm just going to talk how I usually talk, which is one aspect of it, like be yourself. But if someone's struggling to understand you, if someone's trying to understand you, sometimes you may have to tweak the way that you talk and use a different style to approach different type of people. That's why it's important. It's kind of like your first point of contact, your first cue to know how you should start talking.
That's actually a good point, because when they say when you're going for your first date or you're relatively fresh in dating with a significant or other or whoever it is, body language will tell you a lot more if that person is comfortable with you. They'll start touching and feeling you. And even at like strange moments where you're just first time meeting that person and that other person is quite touchy and feeling, it's ready to go down.
That's if you accept that as well.
That's if you accept that, but it gives you that, what's the word? It gives you that
assurance.
Yeah, it gives you the assurance that you're ready to go, or you're ready to move to the next point.
Yeah. And also within upbringing and like the people that I know in my life, there's a lot of shady people that I know. And that's also why I picked up a lot of social cues, because like I said, what people say is not actually what they think in their head, or someone might be lying to you. I've picked up on a lot of cues where you can tell that they're not genuine, or you can tell they're not really there to help you, or they're really just lying to your face for the sake of not being honest. So there's a lot of reasons why body languages is really important.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. You really got to sniff out those dirty bastards who are trying to do a sneaky on you,
Another interesting angle I wanted to take on this is that when you read body languages, you're not always correct, right? Because there's other factors that play into it, like maybe culture, background, upbringing, and experiences that they've gone through. So I wanted to touch on some of the different cultural aspects and how different body languages occur in their culture and why we may misperceive them. A bit of a fun one, but also fun fact.
Yeah, so here are some examples of cultures that do particular moves as a form of a culture thing. So I think nodding your head. So nodding your head, like for you video guys on Spotify, and
The head
nodding
bob.
your head, the head nod. That's generally seen within Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey.
Yeah, so when you nod your head in those areas, it's actually seen as a no. It's actually not a yes.
Ah.
That's why I found that interesting. Like, so these are the common misunderstandings between cultures. What we, maybe in Australia or in the Western culture, might think it's normal, or what we think we have a good understanding of is actually very different. So especially this one with nodding the head in
Yeah.
Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be a shake your head instead.
That's so confusing. That's like when you rub your belly and tap your head at the same time. It's like trying to do that at the same time. It's confusing. But I have a few Asian ones, and this one I think I really relate to because there's a lot of communications and miscommunications through the way that people do things. One of the ones is in a Western culture, facial expressions show a lot, right? And we use a lot of facial expressions to really share how we're feeling, really share how we're thinking. But in the Asian culture, we try to control our facial expressions and try to show as little as we can to be more conservative.
Really?
What do you mean, really? Like, if you talk to your parents, like, they don't usually share anything apart from like oh. And if you go back home with like an A plus, internally they might be happy for you, but they don't show that either. There's like a lot of things where I've seen this, and from an upbringing point of view, this is also what I've carried across and learned, and this is how I am. So if a lot of people talk to me, I actually don't show that much expression, especially when I'm thinking something. And this is actually something I had to unlearn, and I just wanted to do that for myself because I feel like I do need to express more because I don't want to always be holding in a lot of my emotions and to express myself. So it's something I chose to unlearn, not saying that everyone needs to, but that's a very big cultural difference that I can associate with.
Big thing that most Asians in Australia have that issue of, especially coming into the Western world.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the people in Australia, but the parents at least would have this.
Yeah.
Where they don't show emotions.
Yeah. The next interesting one is actually keeping eye contact, and that's more related to Japan.
So maybe you like internally was grown from Japan.
Fuck, I don't know. But apparently keeping eye contact is actually deemed as disrespectful. So most cases they wouldn't be looking at you, they'd be looking at, down your chest or something like that.
Yeah, like they'll be bowing or looking down. But that's also correlated into a lot of Asian countries, even Africa, Latin America, they consider as if you're looking at them like consistently for a long time, whereas in Western, you're like, that's confidence, right? That's you keeping eye contact and keeping engagement in the conversation. If you do that in Asia, Latin America, or like in Africa, it's shown as aggressive and disrespectful.
And it's actually funny. I have a random story that I just randomly thought, I don't know why, when you were talking about that. But there's this one moment I was sitting in the food court at one of the big shopping centers. And I remember I was staring at this girl, but I wasn't staring directly at her. I was staring at something behind her.
Was she Asian, Western?
She was like a Western Aussie girl. And I was staring right into her
soul.
like forehead. But I was actually looking at something behind her, and she was looking at me, and she checked me. She's like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Yeah, I was like, "Not at you. I'm looking at behind you." And she's like, "Oh." So I think staring comes to a certain point where it's very much like, okay, are you staring briefly or are you full staring into that person's soul?
Well, I think that's also different. Like if it's in a conversation, like you're engaged in the conversation with someone, staring, not really staring, you're looking at them, actually looking at them for what they're saying. That's different as opposed to you're doing your own thing, that girl's doing her own thing and you're staring at her. That's different. So I can see why she may have felt uncomfortable. So it's also the context and the situation as well.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny because I was looking at something behind her instead of at her.
Eye contact is such a big thing, and it really shows I think it shows a lot as well in terms of how you show your eye contact, especially in a conversation sense.
Just yeah.
Because like someone could be
eyeballs.
looking at you and you think they're making eye contact, but they could be gazing and daydreaming. So there's like those type of things as well that you need to consider.
Or you're just like a Jap person, right? And you're trying to avoid eye contact, but you're talking to a girl and you're looking at her boobies instead. And you're like, oh shit, sorry, wrong place. Look at the wrong place.
No, that just went into a whole different direction. But again, going back into Japan, like for example, I think most of people should know this one is when you're slurping on your food, like your noodles, it is a sign of respect for their food. Like it means that you're really enjoying the food. It's really delicious. But in a Western culture or somewhere like Australia, if you're loud, you're eating really loudly, most people would be like, yeah, can you not?
Would you kind of consider the same thing as like eating with your mouth open?
That I don't know. Like, I don't know how they do it in Japan, but to me, that's a big ick.
Yeah, because I know there's some of my mates go as opposed to some people who just eat with their mouth closed. So I don't know if that's relatable or
It's a whole different side of research that we need to do. Another one is handshake. So these are things that we do commonly in our day-to-day, especially if you work. But how you do the handshake is also different between cultures. So I would say in Australia, Western countries, it's good to have a firm handshake, means that you're confident, you're keen to meet this person. But that's not the case in a lot of other countries.
Yeah, I heard that if you've got a solid, firm handshake, you've got a solid, firm handshake, it means you're a confident, strong man or a strong person. And I remember I did a handshake with someone and I gave him a real solid hand, like a solid handy. And this guy was like, oh shit, you got a fucking ripper of a handshake there, mate.
Deadlift hands right there.
I was like, oh yeah, mate, check it out. Squeeze
deadlift grip.
I just thought it was interesting, that's all. But in other cultures, like Turkey and Middle Eastern, they consider a firm handshake as a negative thing, so disrespectful.
Rude.
Yeah, disrespectful and being rude.
But at the same time, I get confused with this because everyone's perception of firm or gentle is different. So how would you know if you're doing it too firm or too soft? That's a whole different question, but how do you know?
I guess it depends on... I mean, a firm handshake to me is like a firm handshake when you're not breaking that person's hand.
Yeah, but then like if you do it too gentle, like you're just hovering, like that's too gentle. So how would they...
Well, that's a question to ask for the listeners. How the hell do you know if it's a firm handy or is it too much of a softie?
To the people who are in Turkey or Middle Eastern that's checking in right now, please let us know because we're actually curious, like what's a good handshake if this is actually true. For handshakes in China and I think also Korea is where we researched. So there's actually an order of how you handshake, but also they don't handshake a lot, maybe more in the modern society, but a lot of them bow. But if you were to do a handshake, you have to go from oldest to youngest because that's a sign of respect, and respecting your elders is such a big thing in Asian culture. So when you're doing handshakes and you're going to other countries, that's a good thing to keep note of.
Yeah, but it's not just a regular handshake, it's a double handshake.
Oh yeah, you have
it's
to.
the hand on top of the other hand.
안녕하세요. 你好. That's a very interesting one and just a good thing to keep in mind if you are doing business, meeting people, handshaking in other countries. That's some body language things that are misconceptions and misunderstood sometimes. This last one is a funny one that we picked out because it's very interesting and it's about crossing your fingers. So
like this?
Yeah, like you know how you're like good luck. Like you cross your fingers for good luck. No, not the west side. This guy doing the west side. So when you cross your fingers, like when you say, oh, wishing you good luck, I'm crossing my fingers for you. Do not do that in Vietnam because that is considered as you doing the finger to them.
Really?
I don't know. You're the quarter Vietnam.
I don't know, man. I got to ask my Vietnamese brother out there, man. Can you tell us? Is it? I can't even do it on that. Is the finger crossing equivalent to you getting the finger?
Well, even speaking of that, I think in China or some sort of country, doing the pinky is the rude finger.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I forgot which country. I thought it was China. Could be wrong, but apparently doing that
So if
is,
I gave you the finger, a pinky, you
I'll be
mean
like,
like this?
rude. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
hectic.
So body language, even gestures, like these are different things. So I think keeping that in mind is really important, especially when you're meeting people from different cultural backgrounds, especially when you're so used to something in your society. It's just good to open up your mind to understand other different cultural things.
Yeah, even if you're traveling for work purposes or even like a holiday, it's good to take note of cultural respect and differences between one country and the other.
So to wrap up everything after we've talked about all the different types of body language, why it's important and why we read so much into it, what does this tell us about body language?
Well, body language is 55% that body tells us.
Non-verbal, but also tone of voice.
Yeah. So it tells us that we heavily rely on the body language to express and read the room and tell others how we actually feel.
Yeah, even if you don't know that you pick up on it or you don't know that you're showing a lot with your body language, it really does show how much you actually think inside. And I also think that body language is very highly correlated to your confidence because the way that you carry yourself into a room, the way your posture is, like if you're sort of slouching, your head's facing down, or your head is looking up, you're really looking around, being curious, like that shows a lot in yourself and your confidence in yourself too. So I think body language can also help you if you're trying to become more confident or just to portray more self growth. I think your posture and body language is also really important because what you think about yourself and how you portray yourself to the world will help you grow. And if you're going to continue to carry yourself with like a small, shy, hidden kind of personality, you will stay like that too.
Yeah, I can just imagine like, those games where you walk into the room and then you've got this overly confident presence. You've got this blue aura surrounding you. And as soon as you open doors, it's like this aura just slaps you in the face.
I don't know
Like,
what you're talking about
you
because I don't play
you
games.
want that confidence to carry you as you walk into the room.
Like you want the light.
You want people to recognize and feel your strength. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and also what it teaches us about body language is that, especially with the cultural one, is to be more empathetic. And as much as you think you may have understood body language, it's going to be different for each person. Like it might vary slightly for each person. You can use what you know as like a baseline or like a foundation of what you understand as that person's characteristic, but also be understanding and read more into it and trying to get to know that person to know a bit more about why they have certain body languages.
Yeah.
So be more empathetic.
Yeah. Some of you might find this a little strange, but when you're hanging out at the shopping mall, just sit down and watch people. Because you'd be surprised just with people's like body languages when they're sitting, when they're walking, drinking, eating. Pay attention to how people are. And you really see the
Array of differences.
Yeah, there's a massive difference. And it's interesting. Sometimes we would sit at like Starbucks or something like that, for an example, or a coffee shop, and we just watch people and then we just find it interesting.
Well, not really Starbucks. We don't really have that many Starbucks in Australia because we are a coffee culture country. So we have a lot of cafes to go to. But yeah, like people watching is very interesting.
But let us know, guys, in the comments or even the DMs. Do you think body language is important for communication? And how impactful can it be if you actually can see the differences between different people within the room?
And we'll link the body language test in the links below so that you can let us know what percentage and how much you've scored and how well you can read body language and let us know what you got.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Goodbye.
Peace.